Hello and welcome to the Daily Neloo. Today I'm here with Rachel Slawson, Miss Park City, USA, and actor. Welcome,
Hello.
Rachel.
Thank you.
So you guys, this coming Thursday, October 10th, is World Mental Health Day. And for this week's series of videos, I want to focus on not just mental health, but overall well-being, which is one of the reasons why I have Rachel here today. You've shared with me in the past that you've dealt with bipolar in your life. When did it first surface, and where has that journey taken you?
It's been an interesting journey. I started struggling first with depression when I was a teenager. I was hospitalized twice for suicidal thoughts and 2 different attempts. And then from there, my self-care was really bad, and I was basically doing all of the things that you shouldn't do if you're struggling with depression, like not sleeping very well, occasional recreational drug use, engaging in relationships that weren't super healthy. And so last year I ended up having what is considered a manic episode, and that's when I was diagnosed officially with bipolar disorder. But doctors are still monitoring my health because of the drug use that I didn't do, but had I done it, that's what would have happened.
I think the word bipolar gets thrown around a lot, and without people really understanding what it means. What is bipolar versus, depression or just anxiety?
Sure, I think it's really important for people to know that there are actually 3 types of bipolar disorder. So there's bipolar 1, which is characterized by manic episodes that have more hallucinations, maybe more like lower lows, and then bipolar 2 is like a little bit more mild. Like mania might look more like just being really impulsive for a week, but more so than just like a spontaneous person. Like it's usually something dramatic, like big spending sprees or like going off with strangers on different adventures that like not showing up for work. And then there's like an unspecified form of bipolar disorder that's kind of like a mix between the 2. Mental health, unfortunately, you can't just like put someone in a machine and push a button and get an answer as to like what the issue is. Something that I think I struggle with is like I'll go on a date. This happens like all the time. Or someone will be like, oh, my grandmother had bipolar disorder. She always tried to set the kitchen on fire. Or like, oh, my ex-girlfriend had bipolar disorder. She always tried to throw glasses at my head. And it's like,
is this when are they just kind of giving you this information, or is when you say
No, actually, you'd be surprised. People just volunteer this information a lot. I just think that there's a lot of like stigmas around like a few stories about people that had bipolar that reacted a certain way, and that's not what the disorder actually is. What the disorder actually is cycling between low feelings of like possibly being suicidal or very depressed, and then periods where you're feeling pretty normal, and then periods where you're kind of on a high, which depending on the type of bipolar is either being really excitable or really like impulsive. Some people have more like anger or frustration sort of symptoms, and then other people have more like hallucinations or delusion.
When did you start kind of taking care of yourself in a more intentional way?
So last year, after I had that manic episode, that was like a huge game changer for me. Like I said, I had extremes of depression before, but I had never experienced what's considered mania. Like my experience was as if I had taken drugs, but I hadn't taken anything. So it's like your brain goes on a trip. I thought I was going to space to hang out with Elon Musk, and like that is a dream of mine in reality.
Wow,
like
we have that in common.
Yeah, I do actually want to do that, but like I believed that it was happening like right now. Like I thought that the hospital was like a waiting room for space.
Do you consider that like your rock bottom?
I mean, I wouldn't like to say that I've had one rock bottom, because why limit yourself? But that was definitely the scariest one.
Yeah.
So it incited the most change after the fact, for sure.
And you said when you prioritize self-care, you start to see positive changes within a couple months.
Oh, dramatic changes. Yeah, dramatic changes.
Were there any specific self-care regimens that really worked for you?
When you're really depressed, like the last thing you want to do is go for a hike and call up your friends. Like that's it sounds like a great idea, but it's just not that realistic. No. And I remember when I was meditating a while back, I had a realization where I noticed I wasn't breathing very much. Like I wasn't just doing like mindful breathing exercises, and then I also noticed that I was not drinking enough water. And I have a non-scientific theory that when we're not hydrating ourselves properly and when we're not breathing enough, that we're actually denying ourselves life. And so it's like a very life-giving thing to just do something as simple as drink water and take a deep breath. So if like I was in my worst, lowest moment where like getting out of bed even seemed hard, like the big accomplishment of the day would just be going and making sure I'm properly hydrated and making sure that I was getting proper oxygen and those simple things like start to kind of like kick your brain back into a state of self-care, because you're doing one little thing to take care of yourself, so then the next thing feels a little bit easier.
And you're kind of building that momentum towards taking care of yourself.
Exactly.
I remember doing one of my episodes of depression. I had lost a ton of weight, and my friend came over, and she hadn't seen me for maybe a month, and I had lost probably like 15 pounds.
Wow.
And she's like, "Did you eat today?" And I said, "Yeah, I had a tangerine." Oh. And in the moment, I didn't think I was withholding nutrition from myself. I just didn't have any desire to eat. Yeah. And for anyone watching, you know, if they don't want to hit rock bottom first before they start to take care of themselves, what are some tips you can give them to proactively take care of their mental health?
Well, the one thing that I did learn from rock bottom, which I is something that I'm really passionate about telling other people, is that the person that's coming to save you is you. And so, you know, you can learn that lesson when you get to the very bottom, or you can learn that lesson at any other time. I would recommend picking any time before rock bottom, having been there a few times. And so I think, you know, when you remember that, when you really can start to internalize, like, I am the person coming to save me, then, you know, when you start to notice signs that are like the prequel to the story of hitting rock bottom, like, you can shift and change things before that point ever happens. First of all, if you're ever having suicidal thoughts, like, that's not normal, that's not healthy. It's one thing if that pops in your head like for one moment, maybe after you get bad news, but like if that's a prevailing thought that you're having even like more than once, or you're starting to actually like put together a plan or really consider how you would end your life, like, that's a sign of illness. So I think it's really important that if that ever happens, to immediately go seek help. As you start to notice those signs, like, you can know something's off. Honestly, just if you're not feeling well, like, something's wrong.
And I think that's a really good point, because until I kind of addressed my depression, I didn't realize that underlying dissatisfaction was not a normal way to live. Like, that was my normal. I just didn't know that was depression. So you have an amazing platform and an opportunity to reach many. What are you doing now with your advocacy for mental health?
So my platform for the pageants that I compete in, and just a general message I try to share, is I am why, which means a few different things, but the main is that I am the reason why I'm here, and that's a good enough reason. I think competing in pageants, you know, you're expected to have a platform or a cause, and I spent a lot of time thinking, like, how am I going to change the world? Like, what makes me important? How am I going to do this big, special, great thing? And when you're struggling with mental health issues, like, that's a huge ask on yourself. And it's actually been like something for my own self-development to just understand that, like, I'm enough. Like, me taking good care of myself is a good enough reason for being alive. And that's also the message I try to share with other people. You don't have to have 1 million followers or even like a non-profit. Like, yes, do good in the world, but mostly just make sure that, like, you're taking care of yourself. When I was hospitalized, I remember just like really asking, like, why should I keep living? Why am I here? And this persisting answer was just like, you are the reason. You're the reason to keep living. You're the reason to keep going. That's enough. There doesn't have to be a bigger reason than that. So that's what I Am Why represents.
If people want to come on board with this, how do they find you?
So you can find me on Instagram as Salty Rachel, and then follow I Am Why Party, which we're going to start doing pop-up party events to celebrate mental wellness, kind of before it ever gets to the point of having to, you know, having rock bottom, like
Tangerine Day.
Yeah, no more tangerine days. Really just trying to remove stigmas around mental health and find something really positive, like going to therapy, taking medication, self-care. All those different things don't have to be this big shameful thing. If anything, it's something that we want to celebrate. So I Am Why parties are going to start popping up to just kind of spark conversations around mental health, and we're going to do dance parties. It's going to be really fun. Yeah.
Are we going to invite Elon?
Yeah. Yes, Elon's invited.
Elon, we're ready for our flight.
Yeah.
To Mars.
I'm well medicated now, Elon, so.
And meditated.
And meditated, yes.
Thank you, Rachel, for being here.
Thank you.
And sharing so openly.
Of course, thank you for having me.
That's it, guys. So look out for more videos this week about mental well-being, and I will see you tomorrow.